gonna lie to you, the Honda Shadow from 1985 was a cooler cruiser than this. And the reason is that in comparison, the build quality on Hondas has not gone up, it's gone down. And the Honda Shadow, the VT700 I'd had, I think was a little bit more durable engine, and it sounded great. It had a shaft drive. It was a 700 as well. So, and that bike was still running. That bike was still running. This one in comparison feels a little cheap. It feels plasticky. It feels like it doesn't really hold up in time. Even though it's probably going to hold up even more. I don't know. Time will tell. But the VT700, everything about that bike was like extremely solid. Even the materials, the metal, the build quality was higher than this one. And that's just from riding. I think what they do in these newer bikes, they make superficial aesthetic changes. Like the bars, they use different paints so it makes it like sparkle. The paint is better. They put plastic instead of metal for the gas tank. And it might not seem like a lot, but over time it feels like you're losing a little bit of what makes Honda Honda. And I have seen this decrease over time. That's why the VT500 Ascot that I have is so special. When you get on that VT500, sure, it's got some issues. It's got some electrical problems. It's got parts that you can't find. But there's like something very special about the build quality of those bikes. This one, the build quality is great, except it's not on par with the 80s Hondas. That's when they were really in their golden age of, you know, trying to beat the Americans at building motorcycles. And they did that really well, you know, like starting in the 60s. But the 80s, man, they built some really interesting bikes. Keeping it at 3,000 or 4,000 RPMs and just let it ride. And even though it's kind of like a faux sound, it's the engine almost sounds like a V-twin, but it's a fake V-twin. But it sounds kind of good. But I keep telling myself it's like a fake V-twin. You know, I don't know why people bothered with that. I would rather have a, you know, a quiet inline 2 than a loud inline 2. You know, the Tannerite, the inline 2 of the Tannerite is great. Nice wheelie. I did a good wheelie because it's not really the motor, it's the induction that you hear that's awesome from the Tannerite. It's got a big left side like vent that forces air into the airbox. I don't think it's got any like big performance, but I think that's why I like the NC700. And by the way, the NC700 engine, which is the same as this, was known more in Brazil and Europe because it's very efficient and it's a very low revving engine, kind of like this. Exactly like this. And what that means to you is that a low revving engine means that it's going to last a very long time and it's not going to consume a lot of fuel. And on top of that, you have engines that are, I've seen quite a few 150,000 mile engines running around, and it's very easy to understand that 50 miles an hour, and the bike just pulls. It's a very smooth power, and I'm on 6th gear, so suspension is a little harsh. I'm going over these ripples on 495, which is pretty normal. That's what I like about adventure bikes, is that, you know, even though the open class adventure bikes are not great and they're heavy, they have enough suspension to deal with these like ripples. Bike. I can't believe this bike only has 2,040 miles. Very easy bike to ride in traffic, man. This thing only's got 2,042 miles. 2,042 miles, that's crazy. Fuel light is coming on, so I am going to have to fill this bad boy up. Like, my shadow looks like I'm R2-D2 from Star Wars. You know, one of the things I miss about my NC700 was the very low weight of it. It was actually heavy, I think heavier than my V-Strom, but it didn't feel like it because the weight was just so further down. The same thing with this bike, the weight of it is like really low. But when I was like walking around my Super Tenere, it's like, Jesus, that's pretty heavy. I can't imagine dropping that bike off-road. The NC700 would be perfect if they put like a belt drive on it or a shaft drive. One thing that annoys me that Honda does, turn signals up down here, horn right over here. Well, that is the Honda ctx700 from 2015 with only 2,046 miles. And that is the very low seat height Honda CTX. Look at those foot pegs, they're so up in the front. But the bike sounds good. It sounds pretty darn good. Only 2,000 miles on it. Aftermarket exhaust. Everything about it is new. I mean, the tires are brand new. Very thick tires, very wide tires. I'm gonna have to learn about this bike, but it's a cruiser. It's kind of like a little bit more of a standard type of cruiser. Alright guys, thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye. Kind of stuck here. The cops won't bother me.